Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting season of Office Hours with the Brofessor, the show where I say things. I've been planning to do a new series for a while now, and I'm finally ready to go. Presenting Intro to Human Origins, or Cavemen Rule. So, I'd like to start off this series by talking about how inconceivably badass cavemen are. I know everyone talks about Vikings, pirates, gladiators, all these dudes, and they're cool. But for some reason, people forget about cavemen, the original badasses, whence all other badasses, myself included, were spawned. There's a million Viking metal bands out there, but not even one good caveman metal band. I think that's a messed up thing. These dudes clawed their way up from being a house lunch special on the Serengeti to mastering the world around them, paving the way for humanity's greatest accomplishments, from the pyramids of Egypt to Boston's More Than a Feeling. For most of humanity's existence, we have lived under conditions that, in popular culture, would be described as a caveman mode of life, or more accurately, what anthropologists call band societies. But before you get excited and start thinking this is going to be a rockumentary, I have to burst your bubble and say it's not that kind of band. A band society refers to a mobile hunter-gatherer society of less than 100 individuals, usually no larger than an extended family or a clan. Okay, so for most of our existence as a species, this was the way that we lived. Billions upon billions of people have lived out their lives in this kind of society. So were not their lives as precious and valuable and full of color and life as ours? So why don't we learn about them? We do seem to have this idea that human prehistory goes a long, long way back, but I think a lot of people don't really have much idea of what went on during this time. Who were these people? When, where, how did they live? Why is it that we learn about the Egyptians and Romans, but not about the Mysterians and the Aurignacians? The answer, of course, is this stupid thing called relevance. But as I always say, who cares about relevance as long as it's badass? These societies existed for hundreds of thousands, arguably even millions of years, with just as much drama and life as any society in written history. And there's just as much, arguably, to learn if we're able to interpret the clues correctly. Prehistoric cultures may not have left written records, but they did leave us these clues, little clues here and there, that add up over thousands of years. So every day we're developing a clearer picture of how these people lived and died. Let's start with a few common misconceptions that people have about the 98% of humanity's existence that predates the written record. First, prehistoric people were in some way inferior to us. So whether you say less human, evolved, less developed, however you want to say it, they were below us somehow. Second, prehistoric people didn't behave the way we did. And this is related here, that they are maybe less intelligent than we were, or something like that. Third, people in the prehistoric times did not, in fact, save money by switching to Geico. Fourth, eventually these prehistoric monkey men discovered agriculture as if they didn't know how seeds worked or something like that. And ever since then, it's been smooth sailing on agriculture. Something like this. This is the way I think it was presented to me, at least, when I studied history in high school. And it's really not that simple. Finally, the last misconception is that the 5,000 years of our existence, when we've had written history, somehow matters more to the human story than any other 5,000-year period. It doesn't. It's just one out of many different periods of human history or human development. People are people now. People were people 5,000 years ago, and people were people 50,000 years ago. Prehistoric societies and modern day small scale cultures are just as important as any other human society. Roman, Chinese, Navajo, Kex, whatever. So, another problem that popular consciousness has with human prehistory is that a lot of us don't really have much of a timeline for this vast, unrecorded period of our existence. For example, I was talking with a friend once who asked me which came first, fire or cave paintings. Now, that's a fine question to ask. There's nothing wrong with that question, because most of us have never really studied this stuff when we were in school. And to me, that's a terrible betrayal of our shared human heritage. So let's fix that, okay? In this series, we're going to take a trip through human prehistory, and we're going to learn about the origins of who we are as a human family. Traditionally, scholars have divided up human prehistory and protohistory by the materials used for toolmaking. Hence, we have the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Ages. Some people would also add the Copper Age as a transitional period between the Stone and Bronze Ages, but these three are the most important. Now, I've always thought that the term Stone Age was kind of a misnomer, since that implies stone was the only or even the dominant material used. But people during this period had just as much ingenuity as we do. Consider, for example, that plenty of bone artifacts have been recovered as well. At any rate, the Stone Age, as we call it, lasted from the very beginnings of humanity to about 5,000 years ago. The Bronze Age between 5 and 3,000 years ago, and the Iron Age from about 3,000 years ago to the emergence of written history. Note, this is a fairly Eurocentric way to look at proto-history or prehistory. We use this division simply because Greece and Rome developed iron technology before they consistently wrote anything down. But just because they were late to the writing party doesn't mean everyone else was. Consider, for example, the fully developed written scripts used in Mesopotamia and Egypt that developed concurrently with early bronze smelting. Hence, the terms Bronze Age and Iron Age have little true significance to these cultures, since these periods overlap with the historical record. In the same way, there are still societies today that do just fine without the use of metal at all. So this Stone Age concept, however flawed, is nonetheless used as a handy tool by archaeologists to describe what they have divided into three periods, okay? So we have the Paleolithic, and when we look at this word, paleo is the Greek word for old, right? So lithic is the Greek word for stone. So paleo, old, lithic, stone, the old Stone Age. Okay, and this is further divided into the lower Paleolithic, the middle Paleolithic, and the upper Paleolithic periods. After the Paleolithic, we have the Mesolithic, or as we say, the Middle Stone Age, and the Neolithic, or New Stone Age. Okay, and of these, the Mesolithic and the Neolithic pale in comparison to the enormous timescales of the Paleolithic, which lasted from the very dawn of humanity to about 10,000 years ago, maybe 20,000 in some places. This period was characterized primarily by band societies engaging in scavenging, foraging, and hunting of big game. Okay? Meanwhile, the Mesolithic, or later on, the Mesolithic is characterized by band societies, but now with more emphasis on small game, along with the collection of wild cereal grains. And during the Neolithic, grain took on an even larger role as people began to settle down in one place and develop what we call agriculture. So lots of people think of the Neolithic as the beginning of what we call civilization, but it took thousands of years of small scale farming before cities, metal tools, or writing developed, hence the need for Neolithic as a classification. But how old is humanity itself? Well, that's a difficult question because first you have to answer the somewhat bloated philosophical question of what is human? And that's something we will attempt to do in our next video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.